You're listening to the Holistic Interior Design Business Podcast. This is a podcast that guides you as a new or inspiring independent interior designer navigating your entrepreneurial path. Here, with my over 20 years experience, I will share my holistic approach to design with intention and ancient practices, including feng shui, all incorporating mind, body, and spirit into my design projects. You will also learn from seasoned interior designers as they give strategies and insight of how they built their businesses and continue to work in the field. Together, we will discover supportive trade partners, new ideas, creatives, and inspiring artists from around the world. I am your host, Rachel Lorraine Crawford. Hello, welcome back to the Holistic Interior Design Business Podcast. We have Tay on with us today from Madouk. Hello, Tay.
How are you?
I'm good. We are talking about creating space and why it's important to be intentional about our spaces that we are creating. They're not just beautiful rooms, but they're spaces that help with our mental health, with supporting our wellness in all aspects, physical, mental, emotional. So we'll dive in here a little bit as to why and how we can create these beautiful healing spaces. So before we start that, I'm going to go ahead and light our candle, connecting with that element of fire, which we love. And then I'm going to pull a crystal card so we can see what we've got for our energy today. All right, so we got our candle lit, and I'm pulling cards from the Radiant Crystal deck from Bouchette Design. And let's see what we have.
You're such a great card shuffler. It's like I feel like I didn't really like
You're so funny. I like shuffling the cards. I just like.
I always think that you're like so you're like, I'm like, man, you could easily be in Vegas.
We have Aqua or Quartz, Communication, Channeling, and Awakening. And if you're not familiar with this quartz, it's a beautiful blue, like an aqua blue, but it also has this iridescent kind of sheen on it. And this is for the throat chakra.
Amazing.
Aquarius and Leo. I am limitless and vibrant at my highest frequency, which is exactly what we're talking about today. Creating that high frequency so that in our spaces we can be limitless with our potential and what we're bringing to the earth. So this is really beautiful. I love it.
I like that combo of Aquarius and Leo too.
Oh yeah, they're opposite signs.
Yeah, I know. That's a nice like freedom on one hand, and then like just with the fire and like the drive and the determination on the other. I like that. It's actually very suitable, I feel like, for right now with the transition, even with the weather. I don't know why this weather has been just so, like yesterday it was like so like just windy, and there was like, it was like very Aquarius, right? It was just like so up in the air. I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing today. And then this morning I kind of woke up and I went surfing, and I just was like, got to get back into the fire. And so it was just very funny that you pulled that card.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 48 hours for me.
I freaking love that. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's my favorite combination, is having that Leo that's just so self-centered, right? And then we've got Aquarius, which is the humanitarian, the one that's looking out for everybody, and having that dynamic and having them balance that out. And then also just, you know, the uniqueness of Aquarius, and then shining Leo on there and letting them be spotlighted as an Aquarian who, you know, might not take that center stage, but
being a little bit nervous about it, but going and stepping up on it. Yeah.
Yeah. And they have their quirks and they have their unique style, and it's like, it's pretty rad.
It's funny because I'm a Gemini, and I feel like a lot of the time with Aquarius and Gemini, I kind of like, there's this delicate dance of like, oh, I see you with how airy you are. You know, I think in the last couple of months, especially 2023, I feel like it's been like teetering off of those two energies. So that's awesome that you pulled those cards.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea what we were going to pull in there. And yeah, Aquarius is that fixed air. So they definitely need more of that grounding.
Yeah.
Versus a Gemini, you're so mutable that you can kind
Mm-hmm.
of shift and go with things. And if you
Yeah.
need to be grounded, I feel like you can kind of morph
Mm-hmm.
into that space a little bit, where Aquarius is so like stubborn in that.
Yeah. They're like permanently like, just, nope, we don't want to come down there.
Yeah. So great. Oh, I love it. Yeah, so today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about creating, these sacred spaces, being really mindful about setting intention within space, which also is, connected with the products that we bring into our home. Do you have any rituals or practices that you might do to create sacred space within your home, if it's a clearing or...
I do. So it depends on, what my practice is like calling for. There's been times where if I like really need to like clear my space, if there's been some like really intense energies or if like something happened, I will like get really crazy and I'll like take most of like the actual physical things out of my house and I'll actually put them in the sun. And then when I put them in the sun, yeah, I know. I don't know where I got that from. I just kind of it started when I was in college and I just like intuitively was like, oh, because I do something weird with my like sponge when I'm cleaning my dishes. Everyone's like, oh, you put your sponge in the sun to actually be able to like clear all the bacteria. And I don't know why that concept kind of always stuck with me. And so that's what I will do is I'll take out a lot of my things for like a deep clean. There's all of these studies that show like the physical removal of like bacteria and grime and like actually like getting down and nitty gritty, like not just, like cleansing it with like sage or Palo Santo, but actually physically cleaning and clearing. It does so much for me as far as just like the hard wiring and like resetting of like, okay, like this is my space again, like whatever happened, like it's all clear, it's done, like let's reset. So that's usually what I'll do if it's like requiring a massive kind of transition and shift from something that was pretty, intense happening.
Yeah.
And then besides that, I do have a candle. I have my Gemini candle that I've had for a couple of years. So I only really use it on special occasions. I have a full moon ceremony that I do. And depending on what that moon is, I've done a couple funny ones. I like to play with fire a lot. And so the last full moon where I had a really crazy experience, I don't know if I've shared with you, but I actually had a like jar of all of these past intentions and like mantras and just like affirmations and things I wanted to release. I mean, it was just a combination of everything. I used to have like a really intense dreadlock and it had like metal in it and I cut it and I put that in the jar. Yeah, it was like super witchy, whatever. And it was weird. This is when I was like, traveling, living in Thailand, living in Morocco, just kind of more adopting those practices. But I did incorporate them when I came home in Laguna and I became a little bit more grounded. So I had this jar and weirdly I got stood up on that full moon and I was just pissed. Like just generally like I'm so over everything. I'm just like, what is going on? Like everything is like so just like messy and like I was just not having it. So I was like, you know what? Like I'm going to go do what I originally said I was going to do. And so it was a giant full moon and my courtyard that I have here, the entrance was like, the moon was like shining straight on like the little parking lot. And my neighbor was watching me and I had like a bowl and I had my jar and I put the jar into the bowl and I lit it on fire. And my neighbor like, and he's like looking at me, he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, it's full moon, I'm burning shit. And he's like, okay. And just like kind of walks away. He's like, whatever. It's like you, like, who cares?
Of course.
And as I'm doing that, I have this like feeling and I'm like, oh, this is going to get really hot because it's just like ceramic.
It's in your hand.
I was like, I should put this, somewhere else. So I'm like carrying the bowl and I have one hand. And as I go to take like the other hand on the grill to put it on just to be safe, I'm not kidding. I like lifted up the grill and all of a sudden this bowl explodes in my hand, just explodes. and I'm looking at it and I like go like this and he comes running to the window and he's
Oh
like,
my
what was
God.
that? And the edge of the bowl is still perfectly intact, just sitting in my hand.
No.
And everything else was just like around me. And I was like, did I get cut? Like nothing happened to me. Like, whoa, like that was real. Okay. Okay.
Wow.
That was something. So, you know, like things like that. And then I used to, I actually during COVID, I hosted a couple of full moon ceremonies and we would go to the beach and it would be me and a couple of my friends. And it was really rewarding to be able to see just people that aren't familiar with certain rituals, or if they have anything, you know, any kind of form of self-care, just checking in. There's a lot of releasing, there was a lot of writing, there was a lot of tears, some screaming, you know, whatever it was, shaking. Like I like to shake a lot. Anything that kind of moves the energy depending on like what's going on. I feel that I'm usually more of a sensitive being, and so energy can get stuck a bit easy and it can get stuck a bit more. But my main routines that I have, my main rituals are wake up in the morning and I have my little journal, and I have a couple of them, but I will do like 3 things I'm grateful for, and then I'll do like some words of affirmation. And then like depending on like what's going on in my life, like my goals that I have, if it's like personal or if it's my business or any kind of like insight that I'm, you know, gaining. Like yesterday, it just came through to me in one of my writings that I was like, there's a very, very thin line between communion and turbulence. And that thin line is in discernment, and like the discernment of being able to like make certain decisions and communicate the way that, you know, needs to be showed up, and instead of force in some situations. And so, you know, kind of like what we're talking about today with bringing certain pieces into your space. I find it no different, you know, bringing like, let's say a rug into your space as opposed to, I was at my sister's house yesterday. She gets all of her groceries delivered to her. She has like bamboo toilet paper delivered to her that was like sustainably cut. She has, you know, like really like eggs that have been, you know, she knows the chickens that it came from or the meat, like things like that. And so I had an amazing conversation with my sister yesterday. I was like, you know, just kind of like curious about it. I already kind of knew where she was coming from, but I knew we were talking about this today. And I was like, so like, what is, you know, like the reasoning for like you actually, you know, like what are the pros and cons to doing this? And she was like, well, number one, like most people, she just had a newborn child. And she was like, most people don't realize like all of our clothes have chemicals on them that like seep into our skin, that go into our bodies. Most of the, you know, foods that we're eating, 95% of them are like synthetic. So things like that. And she was basically saying for her as a consumer, it's important for her to be able to have convenience, but also like information and like knowing where all of these, you know, products come into it. And so I really enjoyed that conversation I had with her, because I think it's really applicable to the conversation we're having today. It doesn't matter what you're bringing into your house, in my opinion. If it's, you know, things you're ingesting, things you're putting on your body, things you're sleeping in, you know, things you're sitting on, the couch, even things that we're watching, you know, everything is a form of consumption. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, because so many of us just are on this autopilot. That's really hard to get out of the rat race sometimes. And then when you do get out of it, it's really overwhelming. You're like, oh my gosh.
For sure.
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It's just
it can be super
everywhere,
overwhelming.
you know, like, so I think with that being said, you know, coming from a place of providing, you know, Madouk, the entire point of Madouk is to be able to create a space where consumers don't have to feel that like, you know, like coming at me, like, where do I go? What do I do? And instead, you know, like put some mindfulness into it and really think about like, what do you want to be bringing into your space? And deeper into that, like there's like an art form to it. I mean, you as a designer know, right? Like color schemes, like what kind of colors do you want to be bringing into your house? Like what mood do you want to be in? Like when you wake up in the morning, like what's the first thing that you look at? For me, my routine is like really restricted on my phone, my screen time. So I won't sleep with my phone in my room. I'll sleep with my phone outside in my living room. because I have found that like when I do sleep with my phone in my room, the first thing I do is just go there. And then I totally notice like a shift in like my entire day. And if I don't do that, and first thing I do is like I get up, I take a shower, because I think that taking a shower is like the best way to just like cleanse everything, whatever like your dreams were, whatever energy is on you from your sleep, wash that off. And then I will come and I'll sit on my Madouk rug, and I first like I'll just kind of run my hands through it, and depending on like what my body's doing, if I need to like stretch it out, or I'll do like a couple of neck rolls, just like wake up. And I'll just like sit and I'll listen, and I'll just like listen to my body, like what is it telling me, like how am I feeling? Am I like excited? Am I feeling kind of like ornery and I don't know why? Like what is that kind of feeling? And there's reminders for me, the physical reminders, things like the rug, things like my journal, things like having a candle. Those are tangible like anchors to be able to almost like remind you and to actually like bring in this like excitement of doing it. Because I guarantee you, if there wasn't these pieces that were to be anchored to, it would be a lot harder to maintain that routine.
Absolutely. And it's like, and you spoke about it, you know, with your sister, of having things being convenient. And when we're designing spaces with intention, it is about like, well, what is the routine that you want to create in your life, and how can we design your space so that it supports you in that routine? Just like, you know, having your phone outside of your bedroom. So making sure there are no plugins in or around your bed. So it's like, that's something you just can't do. And then yes, having like a beautiful rug where you do your meditation in your room, and having the candle there, and having everything set up, preset, so that it's very easy for you to get up and get into that space. And that's all part of that holistic design process of creating these spaces to support the habits that you want to create, right?
Right. And the habits are like, it's, you know, it's the consistency that matters. And so it's like, whatever it means for somebody, whatever you need to do for yourself to be able to bring pieces into your home or things or whatever it is, to remind you to be able to do that every day, and not even remind you, but like get you excited. Like that's the first thing that I think about when I wake up, is I'm like, oh, I get to write today. Oh, I get to like make my coffee, and I get to light my candle, and I get to put on my mom's record player, and I get to just kind of like fall into my routine. And if I don't do that, I definitely notice like a shift, and I definitely notice a difference. Just like
it just sets the mood for the day.
I'm like up in like the Gemini. I'm like, whoa, what am I doing? Like, where am I going? You know, like what day is it? What year is it? You know, things like that. So for me, I can understand firsthand how like really critical it is to be able to, when you're talking about cultivating a space. And actually my neighbor, one of my best friends, she has her own, you know, kind of a brand of her own brand, and it's called Life Space Energy. And she will go into her, she's amazing. She'll go into her clients' homes, and she will actually not have them say anything to her. And she will just kind of like flutter over here and flutter over there. And she will actually be able to pick up on like energetically, like what are these people hoarding? And like, what are they holding on to energetically that like is not necessarily serving them anymore, but it's something from the past, and it's coming from like a fear place. So, and she will actually utilize, you know, my Madouk products to be able to be like, okay, but like just for her clients understanding, like, I know this piece, or I know this piece of clothing, or whatever it is that you have this attachment to and this memory to of this person. Maybe they died, or maybe it was a breakup, or maybe it was a friend that you know, lost contact with, whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be like a sad or negative memory, but if something is like holding on to so much of yourself and so much energy, then it starts to become like taking up space. And then what that does internally is it doesn't allow you to bring in new things, new ideas, your creative process, whatever that is. And so I don't think, I mean, I guarantee you, if most people shifted their idea of like, oh, our energy and all this and all that, it's like we have a gas tank. We have like a gas tank, and depending on like how we deplete it and how we fill it determines like how we're going to actually be able to like how far we're going to be able to go on the road today.
Absolutely.
And for me, it's like such a easy core concept because I can feel it so much. You know, I can feel when I'm drained immediately, when my battery is running really low. And so then that's when the practices really start to be able to facilitate and help alleviate a lot of that. And just having, you know, your own space and feeling safe in your space is one of the best ways to recharge your battery. And that's why I think it's really important to talk to people and educate a lot of our clients on, hey, you know, your space should be the safest place for you. Your home should be where you just can shut out the world and just, you know, dive in, and you can get creative and you can cry and you can do whatever you want to do in that place. But if you're filling it with things that are taking from your gas tank, then you're not going to actually be able to recharge when you're in your home when you need to be able to. So it's almost like it's like a logical process, but there's so many moving pieces and there's so many moving parts. And it is a lot further than, you know, obviously one of like the really big principles is how was it made and who made it? Because that in itself, we've talked about holding before, energy, you know, that carries an energy. But also, what does that mean to you? Like, what does that piece mean to you? You know? And I've just had really interesting experiences with it. So
I was just going to say that in itself is a whole experience to take on, even with your clients as the designer. Is like, you know, I love walking through and being, okay, well, what is this art? What does this mean to you? What does that mean to you? Where does that come from? And there's stories about every single thing. And you got to think about all the stories that you're feeling in your home. And that is constantly interacting with your own field, right? With your own energy field. So yeah. And then I think once they start to realize that, or they start sharing the story, like, ooh, actually, like, I don't, that's not like a positive story that I like to retell or that I like to re-experience. So then it's like, okay, let's release it.
Yep. Absolutely. And especially, you know, I'm sure, you know, you're doing this already, but with spring coming around and spring is here, that's like the first thing on my list of like, I need to do that, is like spring clean it, and like energetically clean it, you know, like clear it out. For me personally, I was in a relationship for about, you know, half a year, and my boyfriend was living with me, and I still like recently, like a couple of days ago, like found some things of his, and I was like, ooh, you know, like
gave me the chippies.
It was just one of those things where I was like, you know, however that ended, whether it's, you know, peaceful or not, there's still something about me that I'm like, this is my space. And like, I'm not meaning that as like an ownership, whatever. I'm meaning it as like an empowerment for me. And so when I saw that piece of his that was like left behind, I was like, oh, and I did get those heebie-jeebies, but I got those in the sense of like, I need to take care of myself. Like I need to like fully make sure and like lock this space in and make sure that like I feel safe.
Absolutely.
And claim it in love, you know, don't be claiming it in like a, you know, like get out of here, whatever, because you don't really, that's never going to do anything for you anyways. You always want to try to send people out into the world with love and compassion, even if it's not working in your own personal life. And I know that could be a lot easier said than done. But I think it's something that everybody should strive for.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we get to be those guides for our clients to be able to open their eyes and to let them see this world that exists, that they are living in and don't realize. So that's like the magical piece that we get to bring in, and also incorporating things like your rugs and all the other things that you're working with. So being able to empower them with these tools and with these items, so that they do feel like they are supported.
Yeah, and it makes people happy. I mean, we just had a client from Virginia. He's an architect, and he saw one of our rugs at the La Jolla Market, and he just was so drawn to it. And like out of nowhere, he was like, you know, like, I need this. And then another person we had this like high-low checker. And so it's just so unique for me to be able to see certain people connect with certain rugs, and then also underneath that layer, I know the background of the rugs. So like I know like what herbs are in these rugs, like what women were in these rugs. And so for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so like cool, very intricate, like puzzle piecing, right? Like it is so fascinating because it's so much more than just people buying products. It's oh, that person's connecting to that energy. And maybe like that rug was even made at like this time of the day. Like you can get so nitty gritty into it. Even if you bring in like Ayurvedic, like if you bring in like, oh, your dosha, like, Are you more of like, are you Vata or are you Kapha? Like, are you more like a morning time person? We're starting to play around with those energetic concepts in the rug making of, okay, we have some women that are making the rugs first thing in the morning. And then we have some women that are making the rugs as the sun's going down. And so, because those are very different energies bringing in, you know, like the new day and then the closing of the day. And so that is something in the background that, you know, we just get to have fun with and we get to play with, because we never look at any of our products as just production.
Right.
It's never like that. Otherwise it would be so unfulfilling.
It's so flat. You just gave me an idea of like creating like rug readings where you can basically do a reading based on a rug that somebody's attracted to at that moment.
Oh my goodness, that would be so much fun.
And then you would have the corresponding
just like now
herbs.
getting the visual for all of this.
Yeah, the corresponding herbs, the time of day, like you were talking about the doshas, like which one is associated with what. You could totally create something magic with that.
And we could even like incorporate like the elements, because I have noticed that like different women have different like flares and different things. And so I'm like, oh, that would be so interesting to get like a group of women that are fire or a group of women that are water and like get those elements and then seeing, oh my goodness, that would be such a good idea. Yes. That is so much fun.
Yes. And you can even do like even a quiz on your website or something to find out like what rug, you know, means, what does this mean? You know, like one of those sort of things.
We could have like collections of like the fire collection, you know, like, oh my goodness, you're a genius. Look at you.
I'm like, oh my God, you have so many things here. I'm like, I could totally have fun with this. And we can even do a whole episode on like some of those collections and what those rugs might mean. And, you know, and again, and like just having a reading with people that connect with those elements.
I mean, I think that would even be a really cool way to have like, for you, you know, as a designer, of people when they're coming to you and they're like, oh, I want this and I want that, almost as like an intake form of like, okay, well, maybe we do like, what kind of elements are you trying to bring in? And so then maybe we can incorporate those elements into the rug making and just be able to piece it. See, this is why I love what I do, because it's so much more under the surface, and it really does, like in real time, like this all sounds like, okay, this is kind of woo woo and blah, blah, blah. But in real time, when you actually see the difference, it matters. Like it totally matters. And even if people aren't necessarily like aware of themselves and aware of these patterns and all of these underlying facets that make up our psyche and that make up our patterns and our decisions and all these other things, regardless if you're aware of it or not, when people are aware of it and they get to watch it in real time, it is the coolest thing. It is just, it's like a game.
Oh my God. I have another idea. So you can also do these intuitive healing wall hangings where you consult with them and find out like what is it that they want to bring into their life. And then you basically connect with your artisan, the time of day, the herbs, the colors and all that. And then you have them create an intuitive wall hanging based on what that client wants to bring into their space.
Okay, we're going to send out an email list for this.
Yes. Yeah, that could be like a whole personal offering.
Oh my goodness. That is so much fun. And we're getting, so we are also working with some artisans from Oaxaca, and we're going to do a ceramics line, which I'm very excited about.
Oh my God.
The ceramics maker that we had in Morocco, I don't know if I've mentioned this previous,
a little bit.
Yeah, after COVID, his hands, I've like never heard of this before, but his hands like are like clamped now.
Oh my gosh.
So he can't use them anymore, which is super like, just, you know, it makes me feel all of the things. But I am looking forward to being able to open up into a different location and just touch with different artisans and different cultures. We went to Oaxaca last February to be able to source and scout, and just kind of what we're talking about, their appreciation and their, you know, ancient knowledge of just how to utilize all of these natural elements, whether it's herbs or whether it's really much anything, crystals, you know. In Oaxaca tradition, I know that when I was down there, I was actually down there during, I was trying to go down there during Dia de los Muertos, and my dear friend was down there during Dia de los Muertos. Actually, Jess was too. Jess and her partner went down there, and their concept of, you know, connecting with spirits and how thin the veil is.
Yeah.
And it's just right there is so, I think, like inherent in their textiles and everything that they do. I just think it's so like right there, and it's so
Yeah. We
like
could touch
rich
it for
in
sure.
culture. Yeah. So I'm really excited to be able to bring some cultures into our new products, and just to be able to, like you're saying, utilize them and curate them for the individual, and really be able to like tap into someone's life and like make a difference with products. Because on the outside you're like, yeah, whatever, like it's just a rug, it's not really going to change my
Yeah.
life. And it's like,
Yeah.
well,
Actually.
anything has the power to change your life. Anything. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as like if you give it that intention,
Yep.
then it has the power to completely like thwart
Absolutely.
you or take you down. You know, it doesn't matter what it
Absolutely.
is.
Absolutely. And I think the unique position that you guys have of being a company that interacts directly with the artisans, and you don't have to go through all these hoops and regulations or whatever it is as a big corporation that would have to go to do all this. You guys have a unique space that you can make these changes, and you can get really personal with your clients. And I think that's huge.
Yeah, it's fun being a small business. I know that right now we are moving into kind of an unprecedented territory with, you know, the advancement of all this technology. And, you know, I mean, yesterday I was trying to figure out AI to like write like an email for me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like so much. I just, you know, it's helpful, but all these things. And I started thinking about that, and I was like, in 10 years, like, where are we going to be?
Yeah.
And, you know, for me, I actually was like I kind of like put it on my shoulders, and I was like, it's up to us to be able to, at least in terms of our business, Madouk, like it's up to us to be able to like protect these practices, because these things are what actually help people, because it connects to our ethereal, it connects to our astral body, it connects to all of these different facets of our being that we're not necessarily taught and we're not necessarily open to accept, because it's kind of, it's not as taboo anymore, but I still find that it's a little bit like undigestible for some people, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But with that knowledge and understanding, and then kind of like looking down the pipe of like what's coming, of like handmade products are going to be very rare and like very hard to find, and it's going to be that much more, you know, special, and that much more like I feel like we have to protect it. You know, I really do feel like a sense of just kind of not ownership, but just wanting to, you know, like make that safe, and like no one's gonna come and like, they're in the mountains, like these villages are in the mountains, like don't come to the mountains, like let them with their just let them be with, you know, their entire culture and their ritual, right? Their ritual of going and getting the sheep, and like everything that we were saying, you know, washing it in the river and putting that, because that's like whispering all of this energy that we're talking about. That's the process. Like that's the start of it. And so I think that just to kind of, you know, put everything that we've been talking about together, looking forward as a consumer myself, obviously it's impossible for us to not consume anything. I mean, obviously we have to be able to live. We have to be able to enjoy our lives. We have to be able to appreciate the things. And I don't think there's anything wrong with appreciating things. I think it's more important to be able to appreciate the things that matter. Absolutely. And the things that are doing good for people, for the planet, like all these things. And, you know, if people have a really deep sense of like luxury, and like they are very pride, they're very like, this is how I attach my identity to it. That's okay too. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But I ask those people, and I ask everyone to just ask that simple question of like, where is this coming from? And like, what is this going to actually do for me in my space? Like, what is this actually going to do to my life? Is this going to enhance it? Is this going to make me feel better? Because if it is, then do it. But if it's not, and it's just like, oh, I'm just doing this fix, it's just not that. It to me is just like, that's going to drain your gas tank, and then you're not going to have anywhere to fill it back up.
Yeah, for sure. It's all about creating that maintenance and keeping you going. And and like having these handmade things, that's going to be the goal. That's going to be the thing that, you know, it's really going to separate certain aspects of the industry for sure. And, you know, we can see it so easily, but
And it's just with like organic, non-toxic materials. I think that was what my sister said. That was like her number one word, was like non-toxic organic. And I was like, well, it's very interesting how we have to label that now with, our
everything
supply chain over here. Like it has to be a very specialized, form of like where is this being grown? Like what is being put in the soil? Like what kind of chemicals are being sprayed on this? And, in a place like Morocco right now, where they right now are still not there, where they're having to spray all these chemicals to be able to keep them and preserve them and all these things. That to me is like kind of the crux of it all, of being able to like facilitate all of these natural elements in your space where you wouldn't be able to do that otherwise. And so that's the importance of being able to bridge that culture, because you are still adopting and wanting to maintain those values, even if we don't have those values in our day-to-day here. Like we don't necessarily have access unless you pay a really, really pretty penny for it. And then that's kind of like the deterrent, where people are like, well, it sounds like a nice idea. I would like to have a handmade rug, but I don't want to have to, break the bank to be able to do this. I have a family. I have this, I have that. And it shouldn't have to be a choice like that.
And I feel like your rugs, the price point at these rugs and for what you're getting is insane. I'm just like, I'm so blown away about it. And every time I see it, I'm like, I just can't even believe it. And to be able to offer that to people is really cool.
Yeah. It's intentional. We don't want that. That's the whole idea. Is I think the main deterrent from our research has been that a rug doesn't need to be tens of thousands of dollars to be able to actually, do what you want it to, which is help the artisan that made it and help the person that's buying it in their life. That's pretty much it. And if you kind of approach it from that angle and that aspect, it's the price is what it should be, because it should be accessible to all these people. And then the more that it's accessible, the more business these artisans are getting, and the more money it's putting right into their pocket. So this is like one of the very few times where I would say like quantity is not compromising quality, because we have such a large bandwidth of artists. We have 93 women. And so we are actually able to produce a large quantity without having to impede on the quality of it. And
that's amazing.
I think that's one of our main things. So thank you for saying that about our prices, because I really want, people that listen and just kind of anyone that comes across our brand to really understand that it's accessible for everyone. And like, this is here for you. It's here for the consumer. It's not here for us to kind of like go and be this whatever luxe rug company, because there's tons of those. We don't need it. That's not what we're after.
Yeah. No, you can tell the purpose and the soul behind your brand and what you guys have and what you stand for, which is, like I said, it's so unique, and you guys have such a beautiful position in this industry that you don't see it very often. So it's very appreciated. So I would love to kind of leave it with you sharing anything else that you might want to give our audience, as far as, again, how to find you, how do we connect with you, how do we get samples, any of that sort of thing, as a designer, so that we can bring these beautiful products and support your artisans into the homes of our clients.
Absolutely. So anyone that is local to, Southern California, San Diego area, I'm in Laguna. We love to be able to meet people in person. And so any kind of clients that want to have face-to-face, we would love to be able to come to your space, or, jump on a call and just kind of discuss like what it is that you need. For people that want to be able to see our products in person, every weekend we have been at the La Jolla Open Air Market. And then actually last weekend, super exciting news, we got into the Cardiff market.
Yay!
And, oh my goodness, I'm just so excited about it, because there's like so much space, there's so much parking. It's like right off the 5. It's like the most convenient as far as farmers markets I've seen in Orange County and San Diego.
Okay.
And I think that people are really, really excited about it because of the convenience. I know the vendors are all really excited about it because it's like the very beginning. I think it's only been going on for like a month and a half.
Oh my gosh.
So it was like a little bit of a different experience, but it was just so like very chill and like just it was amazing. Like at the end of the farmers market, there was like violin lessons. There was like live music, and there was just just an influx of all these different types of vendors. So that's really cool. And
That's
so if anybody
beautiful.
wants to on a Saturday come, that's from 10 to 2, I believe. And
Okay.
that is right off the 5, the Cardiff Market. And and then on Sundays, I think we will probably announce on our website. So we have MadoukCollection.com is our website.
Okay. Yep.
We also have a intake form for any clients that want to create their own custom rug. And like I said, we love to be able to jump on a call or email or text or whatever it is, but that's kind of the start of our process, which is
Beautiful.
we'll ask them, just basic questions about what they're looking for. And then we can really jump into that process and do the whole collaboration. We have an Instagram at Madouk_collection, and we are pretty consistent on that as far as just letting people know if we're going to be at La Jolla or the Cardiff Market, or if something fun is coming up. I know that there's the Dana Point Market coming up on April 30th, and we are still waiting to hear if we can get into that one. I would love to be able to get to that one because it's down the street for me. So kind of just in between, Southern California. I've driven up to LA a couple of times to meet with some designers. And so I'm super open to if people want to, have some samples, or we can send some swatches to them, anything like that. We're very mom and pop kind of old school.
I love it. That's why I love you guys so much. It's amazing.
Yeah, I just like it. It makes it, less transactional. Even if it needs to be transactional, I would still prefer to like when I came to your house and we were just hanging out and talking, I'm like, this is my favorite way. Just doing business, but not even doing business. Just being able to
it's that connection.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
That connection.
And those are the people that you want to connect with. So thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you all.
Of course. You're doing it. I love it. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much, Tay. We'll talk to you soon. On our next episode, we'll have more of these, obviously, so we release these the second Thursday of every month. So stay tuned for the next one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Of course.
You've been listening to the Holistic Interior Design Business Podcast. If it's one that you have been enjoying, please share with anyone else that you think can benefit from this knowledge, and leave us a 5-star review that helps us get seen and found by other new and aspiring interior designers. And if you're looking for mentorship, I invite you to join our club here at the Design Coven. It's a bridge between school and real life interior design. We get in much deeper there. We have virtual and in-person events, so everyone is welcome. You don't need to have a design degree to be part of it, just an interest in holistic interior design. I also want to thank our editor, Marcy Ferry, Blake Ferris, for all of her special help with the podcast, our social media posts, newsletter, and lastly, Kinseth Thibodeau, who is our music composer. Until next time, be well, and we will see each other soon.